All right, Miles, let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. This is one of the more interesting team, one of the more intriguing teams in the NFL because they got playmakers, they got guys. They've got a coach I really like in Arthur Smith. I think he's the right guy for Atlanta. And it looks like they've got a lot of cap space, depending on what they do with Marcus Mariota. They got the draft capital. It looks like they're in a potential position here to have a massive offseason as they look to prep to hopefully a really nice 2023. But we've got some good news for Falcons fans related to one key playmaker that's going to be huge for the Falcons going forward.
Yeah, Nick, and you speak, really big moves, great off seasons, a lot of momentum going into the season, the right guy for the job, and that's what we want the Falcons fans to know. You know this team better than anybody, and that's why we want to ask your opinion. Who do you think would be the most impactful upgrade for this Falcons squad? Whether it's through free agency, whether it's through the draft, who do you think? What position group needs to be addressed? What would be the best move for this Falcons team? But Nick. Speaking of that, what do you got on the Falcons?
Yeah, when it comes to impact players on the Atlanta Falcons, look, you got to look at Drake London, their young wide receiver. He's a really talented guy. Looks like a superstar in their making. You look at Chris Lindstrom. He's an awesome offensive lineman. He's a star as well. But a guy who didn't finish out the rest of the season due to injury, who I think has the potential to be their biggest impact players, of course, tight end Kyle Pitts. I think he's a unicorn. He's a freak athlete. But the real question is, how would he recover from his injury? And we got a report out from ProFootballTalk.com that said this here. I'm going to read from the report here. Tight ends coach Justin Peele said this week that Pitts is, quote, on schedule in his recovery, and head coach Arthur Smith signaled the same. Quote, it's an ongoing process every day, Smith said via Josh Kendall of theathletic.com. Ultimately, what matters is getting ready for training camp. We feel pretty good about where he's at. All right, Miles, this is obviously huge news for the Atlanta Falcons because Kyle Pitts, to me, is the X factor. Look, I know they've got a good offensive line. I mentioned Lindstrom. I know that London's a really talented wide receiver. They've got the cap space. They got the capital. There's a lot of, I think they got some guys on defense. They really need to upgrade that side of the ball, but they got some guys there. But to me, Pitts is the X factor. He has the ability to be a Travis Kelce. He has the ability to be a matchup nightmare that teams just can't game plan for. He's just too good. He can do so many things. He's too athletic. If he's healthy and gets to be ready for training camp and gets to spend time with Desmond Ridder or whoever they bring in, if they bring in another quarterback, I think that's going to be huge going forward to 2023 because Pitts healthy and in sync in this offense is unstoppable. I think he has a chance to be a dominating weapon in the NFL for a long time to come. And this is huge news for the Atlanta Falcons, the fact that he's on schedule to be ready for training camp.
Yeah, Nick, and whether you want to believe it or not, let's even scroll back just a week ago to the NFC and AFC championship games. If you want to be a contender in today's NFL, you have to have a top-tier pass-catching tight end. You look at Philly with Dallas Goedert. You look at San Fran with George Kittle. You look at the Bengals who have Hayden Hurst, who's out there balling out. And then you even look, of course, at the Kansas City Chiefs, who have Travis Kelce. Every top-tier team, Nick, I believe, that I can think of off the top of my head, you got Ravens, Mark Andrews, just so many great tight ends out there. And I think that is it's kind of the cherry on top of these big time, deep playoff making teams. They have to have a top tier tight end. And a guy like Kyle Pitts, you nailed it. He's a unicorn. He is a freak athlete. He's 6'6". He's 250 pounds. He's super fast. He can caught over 68 catches his rookie season, over 1,000 yards receiving. This guy is a difference maker. And you could tell the Falcons looked kind of slow on the field when he wasn't out there this season, and especially having a guy like Mariota as a triggerman. He wasn't as accurate. He wasn't as involved in the tight end passing game. That never really got going, even when Pitts was out there. So I just think an addition of Pitts back to this team is going to be a huge upgrade. I cannot understate or overstate or any kind of state how big this would be for the Falcons.
Oh, absolutely. Because when you look at teams with young quarterbacks that have a lot of success, it's because they have a matchup guy that they can go to who just wins matchups. You look at Brock Purdy in San Francisco, that magical run he was on before the injury. It's because he had a team full of Deebo Samuels and George Kittle, guys teams couldn't match up with because they were too athletic, too big for corners, or too fast for linebackers. In George Kittle's case, like they just become matchup nightmares that defenses can't plan against. Like you look at Kelce, obviously for the Chiefs. Look at what Tyreek Hill did for Tua, right? It's a lot of that same stuff. You get a guy that teams can't handle for whatever reason. In Pitt's case, is a sheer size and athleticism. It just makes a job for a young quarterback so much easier. And I think that's the one thing holding off on the Falcons. If they don't make a move this offseason to go after a big time quarterback, either in the draft or free agency, I think it's because they want to see what Ridder looks like with Pitts on the football field. And that's a fair point, right? Because we obviously didn't see Ridder with Pitts. Ridder, if he has Pitts for a full season, especially a full training camp to kind of get on sync, it could be a completely different guy. And I think that's what Arthur Smith is really excited to see here for Atlanta. Ridder, Pitts, Ridder, London, those two connections together at the same time. And he believes, and frankly, I think there's reason to believe they could be a force with those combinations.